listening to Give God 90, where we're not afraid of the tough biblical questions, because we will dig through the language, the culture, and the history to find the truth revealed in the words of our Creator.
Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Yes, it's Monday one more time. Happens this time every week, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Hope you're having a good day so far. Of course, where we are, it's still kind of early, so day's just getting started. I am being closely monitored and supervised.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Got to do the advertisements here, so if you like what you hear and enjoy it, I'm sure that you need to share that with your friends and family, enemies, all those good things. If you haven't been to GiveGod90.com lately, check that out. All kinds of good stuff going on there. I'll get to the books in a little bit. Every so often, somebody will ask me a question, and they word it in such a way that it makes me think just a little bit. This doesn't have anything to do with what I'm going to talk about today. It's just the way I answered this particular question. And the question was, with all the evidence of evolution, how can I be such a staunch creationist? And when I read it, it made me laugh a little bit. And to paraphrase my answer, part of the theory of evolution includes what we know as, or what has come to be called, survival of the fittest, right? If an organism doesn't have all of the components that it needs to survive, it can't reproduce, it can't continue. So my answer included that, and I said, look around the world today and tell me what we see in people. Do we have what it takes to continue to survive? Because the only way that evolution can work, according to the theory, is if the fittest stop protecting the unfit. That means doing away with things like guardrails on the highway. That means doing away with things like warning labels on hair dryers telling you not to use them in the shower. It means not including certain safety devices on things that he didn't have for years and years. Yeah, people got hurt, and they learned. You know, sometimes stupid should hurt, because that is how you learn, right? Think back to maybe your first relationship in school. Was it very smart? Stupid sometimes hurts your emotions. Stupid sometimes hurts you physically. The only way evolution is possible is if the fit do not protect the unfit. That right there should tell us in our world today that there's no such thing as evolution, because there's something in our spirits that says we should watch out and care for our fellow man, right? We care for our young, we care for our children. We're not kind of like the animals that just kick them out after they get to a certain age and say, oh, you're on your own now. We care for people. That is not an evolutionary concept. That's a creation concept, because we are made in the image of our Creator who cares for us. So, that was kind of my answer in a nutshell. Evolution can't work. Not the way it's presented. Now, I'll move on with what I want to talk about today. I actually had the pleasure of teaching for Messianic Delaware the other night. If you want to see it, the Zoom video should be up. The slides are there as well. If you go to messianicdelaware.com, go to their teaching page, it's all there. And I'm going to look at an overview of what I taught, but I'm going to look at it in a little bit different way. I was talking about theology and theories of theology, and we discussed dispensationalism. And the question I ask is dispensationalism actually biblical? Is it a biblical concept? I don't know if you're familiar or not with what dispensationalism is, but basically it is a theory that our Creator, God, deals with different people differently through the ages. And currently, because this has been inconsistent through the years, currently there are 7 accepted ages of dispensations. From Adam to the garden was the age of innocency. Conscience was from after they were kicked out of the garden till the flood. Then came human government, which was from the flood up to the Tower of Babel. Then there was a time of promise from Abraham to the Exodus from Egypt. And then there was a time of the law, which was between Exodus and the resurrection. We're currently in the age of grace, also known as the age of the church. And the final dispensation will be the millennial reign. God deals differently with different people depending on when they were born, right? We'll get to that in a second. Now, the dispensationalists argue that throughout history, God has had 2 peoples, I should say. There is Israel, and there is the church. And he's had 2 different destinies for each. Well, how does that work? How does that fit? That right there in itself should tell us that this isn't a biblical concept. Because for that to work, it means that our Creator is inconsistent. Because he's dealing with one group of people one way, another group of people another way. He deals with certain people who were born at a certain time one way, and then somebody later is dealt with a different way. Well, that doesn't fit with anything, the like my favorite verse, Malachi 3:6, I am Jehovah, I do not change, and his word doesn't change either. Now, I could go on about how Darby promoted this, but it was actually Augustine who wrote about it, and for the sake of time, I'm not going to go into that boring timeline detail stuff. But I can't find any biblical foundation for dispensation and no biblical evidence for it either. But what I want to look at today is theology in general, an overview, because many have a very misconstrued idea of what theology really is. Now, today, theology is defined as the study of the nature of God and religious belief, or religious beliefs and theory when systematically developed. Today, theology is more than simply attempting to understand who our Creator is and what he expects from us. Years ago, it was considered the study of God, right? So, there is an opposite side of the coin of dispensation, and it's called covenant theology. And covenant theology, there was a gentleman, Dr. Guy Waters, wrote in 2021, covenant theology helps us to see the grand and glorious unity in scriptures. It unifies, it's consistent. Okay? Now, covenant theology, excuse me, I have a much less problem with, because it looks at the covenants, it looks at the promises that God has made to different people, different groups. but it maintains a consistent and unifying concept. In other words, what God promises to Adam, he basically promises to everybody, right? Be fruitful and multiply. Don't eat the fruit off of that tree or bad things are going to happen. And then he gives Adam the punishment after he ate the fruit. And that continues to today. It's consistent. It's the same. It doesn't change. Now, I used the example the other night about promises. And I said, when our kids were young, if I said, we're going to go get ice cream, yes, they were happy. We would go get ice cream. But if I stopped somewhere along the way, whether we needed something from the store or we went to visit somebody first, did that mean that I broke my promise? Well, no, it doesn't mean you broke your promise. It just means it didn't happen immediately. And our Creator promised Abraham that he would have offspring. And Abraham believed him. But Abraham was smart enough to know that it takes time to conceive a child. It takes time for that child to go through gestation. It takes time for that child to be born. A promise was also made that Abraham's descendants would outnumber the stars in the sky. Do you know how many stars are in the sky? It would have been foolish for Abraham to think that he would immediately have a child, that his offspring would immediately outnumber the stars. He knew it wasn't going to happen all in his lifetime. He knew it would take time. But that promise wasn't broken. It just occurs over a long period of time. Kind of like stopping on your way to get ice cream. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. It just means it takes a period of time for it to happen. My problem with covenant theology is not that our Creator makes covenants with people, but how we have twisted them to mean something they don't mean, or how we have misconstrued, miscombobulated, however you want to say it, and they no longer mean the same thing they meant when they were made, when that agreement, arrangement, and confirmation was made. As I said before, Malachi 3:6 reminds us our Creator doesn't change. That means, the same promise that he made to the serpent, the same promise he made to Adam, the same promise he made to Eve in the garden, they all remain exactly the same. The promise that he made to Abraham, the promises that he made to Moses, the promises, pick one, right? Some of them, yes, were fulfilled almost immediately. Some it takes time for. Our Creator doesn't say one thing to someone living at a certain time and then change it to say something different to a group of people living at a different time. That would be inconsistent. Our Creator does divide people, but it's not based on ethnicity. It's not based on race. It's based on how we live. Are we attempting to hear his word and do what he tells us, or are we rejecting it? That's how he divides us. That's what it comes down to. More on that in a little bit. But, well, we can start right now. If you want to read that particular passage from the Psalms.
If his sons forsake my law and do not walk in my judgments, if they profane my statutes and do not keep my commandments, then I will punish their transgression with the rod and their iniquity with striking. But I will not break off my loving kindness from him, nor deal falsely in my faithfulness. My covenant I will not profane, nor will I alter what comes forth from my lips. Once I have sworn by my holiness, I will not lie to David. Psalms 89, verses 30 through 35.
So he will not violate his covenant or change what he has spoken. When the Almighty swears by his own name, you can rest assured that he's going to do exactly what he said he will do in his time. For some of us, he's stopping on our way to get ice cream, right? That's the bottom line right there. You know, he doesn't hand out one punishment to Adam and a different punishment to somebody else. You know, what was Adam's punishment? By the sweat of your brow you will eat. Are you working for your food? Well, most of us are, right? Some people want to live off the generosity and charity of others. Because it's all the same. You see, the only way that dispensationalism could possibly work is if we are created as terminal beings and not eternal beings. We've done a podcast about that some time ago. Why, you know, the difference between being a terminal being, someone who has a beginning and an end, and an eternal being. You see, we are eternal beings for the same reason our Creator deals with us, right? We're made in His image, and He certainly is eternal. Now, even Jesus, even Yeshua, is recorded in Matthew, Mark, and Luke as saying He's not the God of the dead, He's God of the living. And he's speaking about our Creator. He's talking about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Still being, still existing, just not on earth. Each of us are going to be judged exactly the same way by the Creator's terms. Each of us has the opportunity to either accept the things the Creator offers to us, or we can reject them. How often in Scripture do we read something similar to, if you hear my voice and obey my commands? It's throughout Scripture in one form or another. How often do we need to be reminded that faith is counted as righteousness? That brought up another interesting comment this week. He believed in Jehovah, and he reckoned him for righteousness, talking about Abraham. And the comment is, this begs the question, what exactly, according to scriptural definition, this begs the question, what exactly, according to scriptural definition in its entire context, is righteousness? If we wish to be like Abram in his faith and belief, we should know this, not guess at it, or take our definition from English dictionaries or teachers of some other religion. My response was, I agree. Righteousness is a word that, in my opinion, is overused and misunderstood. Depending on the context of how it is used, the definition would be obedience, and another would be striving to be holy. And that leads to the question, what makes us holy? Obedience to the word of the Creator. That seems like circular reasoning, but it really isn't, because the entire context of righteousness is doing what is right. And what is right? Doing the things that God says to do, right? I mean, it's about as straightforward as I know how to put it. How many times have you heard me say, we need to live the way we're designed to live? Say it all the time, right? It's on the website. It's everywhere. So here's how Solomon put it in some easy-to-understand language, I hope. It is from the International Children's Bible.
Now everything has been heard. Here is my final advice. Honor God and obey his commands. This is the most important thing people can do. God knows everything people do, even the things done in secret. He knows all the good and all the bad. He will judge everything people do. Ecclesiastes 12, verses 13 and 14.
Basically, what Solomon is telling us is live according to the covenant that was confirmed in blood at Mount Sinai. You know, and that covenant can be found in Exodus chapters 20 through 23. No need to make it complicated. No need to try and confuse it. It's there. Now, there are some things that were added in other places for our benefit, mostly to clarify some other things. There are places that elaborate on these things. But theology boils down to this. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and everything you have. It's not difficult. You know, if you do that, you really don't need to worry about all the fancy churchy words like dispensationalism, justification, any of that stuff. Yeah, I can use them, but why? Most people don't understand them anyway. Most people hear them, they put their own definitions to them, and they kind of forget about them after a while. The word theology is a Greek compound word, and very oversimplified, it means studying God. Unfortunately, today, we use this word to mean studying religion. But what use is it to study religion when our Creator tells us how to worship Him? If He's the one who tells us how to worship Him, and we're studying all these other ways, does it really do us any good? You see, when theology becomes our religion, we lose the obedience to the Creator, and we begin obeying the created. You know, we'd all be a lot better off if we listen to the Almighty when He tells us, just listen for my voice. Just do what I tell you. It's kind of like when you were little and your parents would say, I wish you'd listen to me. I heard it a lot. I won't go into that. You see, we don't need to focus on our religion. We need to focus on our Creator, because it is His word that matters, not ours. It's what He said that matters. It's not what our parents tell us. It's not what our grandparents tell us. It's not what we think. Because no matter, I don't know how many times I've heard, well, I think or I feel. It doesn't matter how I think or how I feel. What matters is what Jehovah said. It's that simple. It really does boil down to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and everything you got. Are you going to get it perfect? No, you're not. But if you're trying, if you're accepting it, if you're doing the best you can with the information you have, look at all the benefits. Or you can believe in evolution. You can believe in the Big Bang, which says something exploded out of nothing. And the latest I've heard was a fellow talking about that, and he said, well, everything was condensed into something smaller than the size of an atom. Well, if something was smaller than the size of an atom and it exploded, then there was nothing in the beginning. Where did the something come from that was smaller than the size of an atom? The entire evolutionary sequence has issues. Religion has issues. Our Creator doesn't have any issues other than us. Well, and some of the divine beings. We can be our own worst enemy when we try to overthink this stuff. We can be our own worst enemy when we rebel and we reject and we turn our backs on our Creator. We can be our own worst enemy when we try to go our own way and wonder why it isn't working. We can be our own worst enemy when we don't include our Creator in what we're doing. Just something to think about this week. And I want to remind you, we won't be here Thursday. It is Independence Day in the United States. So we will probably be looking for fireworks somewhere. Don't know where, but somewhere. So until Monday, next week,
Monday.
we do wish you many, many blessings, everyone.
Absolutely.